No wedding dresses here, lots of politics. The front pages of the papers have two really dominant stories, I would say. The first is about the Labour conference and growing push for a second vote. 83% of Labour supporters polled over the weekend say they want a second vote. Only 8% don't. And the Observer has Tom Watson, the Labour deputy leader, much thinned down these days, asking Jeremy Corbyn to grant that. We'll be talking to Jeremy Corbyn later on in the show. The Sunday Times splashes on the other really big story, which is the reverberations after the Salzburg car crash. May's team plot snap election to save Brexit, they say. They say there's talk about a November election. I should say that Number 10 say this is absolutely untrue. It's also, however, in the Mail on Sunday. The Sunday Telegraph there has we've talked about breakaway parties for a long time. On the centre, this is a potential breakaway party from the right of politics. Tory donor threatens breakaway Brexit party, a party promising to do a quick, clear Brexit. We'll talk about that later on. The Sunday Mirror has a very interesting interview with Jeremy Corbyn. We're going to be talking about that later on. And finally, there's the Mail on Sunday about an MP at this party conference allegedly needing or asking for police protection. Let's start, however, with Camilla and the Observer front page.
Right, exactly. Well, the Observer has got an interview with Tom Watson, basically saying that this research that's been carried out, I think it's a YouGov poll, interestingly by the People's Vote campaign, so make of that what you will, but I think it's actually 86% of party members want the British people to be given a final say on the UK's future relationship with Europe.
It's a powerful piece of propaganda. There's huge numbers of pro-European People's Vote campaigners all around the conference already. It feels like an attempt to really bounce the Labour leadership into moving one stage further and saying, do you know what, we probably can't get our general election. In these circumstances, there will be a second referendum.
And it's an interesting argument, isn't it? Because for Labour, yes, there is that kind of millennial groundswell behind a second referendum. Perhaps people that would naturally have seen themselves as the Liberal Democrats but feel betrayed by them over the whole student tuition fee issue. Having said that, others will be arguing here two things. First of all, this makes life quite difficult for Corbyn and McDonnell, who have said in the past that we must be respecting the referendum and they don't want another one. Equally, we know that they have extremely Eurosceptic tendencies. And furthermore to that, there's also this suggestion, of course, that in having a second referendum or in calling for it, we had a general election with two parties saying they didn't want a second referendum and the Liberal Democrats saying they did. And we all know what happened to the Liberal Democrats. So is it actually an effective campaign strategy at this stage?
Well, Laura, you are part of this move to democratise the Labour Party, democratise party, the left of politics, in which case the Labour leader has a kind of obligation to listen to his own conference, doesn't he?
Well, I think actually, never mind the Labour leader, I think the Prime Minister has an obligation to listen to the country, and most of us are horrified with what's going on. I mean, I've picked out here Jeremy's sort of throwing the gauntlet down in his piece in the Mirror, saying Corbyn lays down the gauntlet as Labour conference starts, and if the PM can't deliver Brexit, she must move over. And I know everyone would like to make Labour the story, but the real story is that Conservatives have had an absolutely terrible week.
They certainly have, but we are at the Labour conference. And I ask again, because what people suspect, I suppose, is that this obscure business of compositing, getting lots and lots of ideas and motions together and putting them through a kind of meat grinder, ends up with a motion that is too general to actually commit the Labour leadership to a second referendum.
Well, I think the Labour leadership have been very, very clear. Keir Starmer has been saying for months, John McDonnell, Jeremy Corbyn, Tom Watson, the party's united around the fact that the Conservatives must demonstrate they can meet the 6 tests that have been set out. We saw last week, Chequers fell to pieces, the Foreign Secretary left, David Davis left. There was an after-dinner diplomatic disaster for Theresa May in Salzburg last week. Labour has said consistently, if you are not up to the job, then give us a general election and we will negotiate a better deal.
Do you think we're going to see a general election soon?
Well, I would hope so, because I don't think it's good for the country that we continue like this.
And is Momemtum ready for it?
We're absolutely ready. Yes, we have got, I think, nearly as many members as the Conservative Party.
Good grief, you're actually at that point already. That's amazing.
And we are definitely ready. We've got community organising teams around the country, absolutely.
Okay. Camilla, let's turn to the Daily Telegraph. They've done a big job on looking at the aftermath of what we've just been talking about inside the Conservative Party.
What's interesting now, post-Salzburg, and we had this during the week, actually, the Telegraph, I did an interview with Sir Mike Penning, one of Theresa May's closest allies, saying that Chequers was as dead as a dodo and that she was playing Russian roulette with the country and indeed her backbenchers. And here we have Andrew Mitchell also saying that he doesn't think Chequers is a goer, and this is a Remainer who hasn't been critical of the policy until now, and we're seeing this more and more moderates within the party sort of coming out and advocating this Canada plus style deal. And I'm sure you're now going to ask me what the pluses mean, Andrew.
It's the city, isn't it? It's commerce, basically.
Well, it's basically based on the CETA deal that was struck last autumn between
I
Canada...
don't want to know any more. That's enough.
Well, it's meant to be also including, the pluses are meant to be to have non-tariff barriers on services and security and things. So basically we have this free and frictionless trade. Whether that's achievable, of course, remains to be seen.
Very interesting photograph. It's in quite a few papers of David Davis and Nigel Farage genially sharing a drink together and a chat. Is this the realignment of the right starting to happen?
Well, interestingly, they were at a rally yesterday for Leave Means Leave in Bolton, and Nigel Farage is taking a podium with various different Tory MPs, including Jacob Rees-Mogg and other Leavers.
So they're bringing him in from the cold.
They're bringing him in. I think, actually, I spoke to somebody who was at Bolton yesterday saying David Davis was looking a little uncomfortable initially because obviously coming out from the cabinet and now realigning himself with basically the people he was with during the referendum campaign might be a bit awkward. Great atmosphere in Bolton, though. There was a lot of support, a lot of cheering for Farage because he is a good orator and he can mobilise the troops.
He is a good orator. He also stood in front of a poster in the referendum campaign, which most commentators would say was racist. I think it's very worrying that many mainstream Conservatives, I believe, will be very worried that their party's aligning themselves with such a right-wing party. We've got the rise of the right across Europe. I don't think this is a healthy place for British politics to go. I think it's another reason why we need a general election, actually, and a complete shift.
You mentioned the words general election, Laura. You've got the Sunday Times there underneath the rest of the papers, but it's got a splash. I think of the Sunday Times.
The
Sunday Times.
Oh, yes, sorry. Here we go.
Well, that's the one that's predicting a general election most vociferously.
And this is interesting because here you've actually got Theresa May's own team agreeing with Jeremy Corbyn in what they describe as a secret contingency planning, which clearly isn't that secret as we all know about it, for an election. And again, further discourse about, you've got a whole leadership campaign going on here in the Tory party, the great public secret, Sajid Javid, Philip Hammond, they're all lining up to take over. The country can't afford this, though. I mean, we are 200 days away.
Very, very close now, very close indeed. Time is running out very fast. Number 10, of course, say there is no plan for an early election, and this is all nonsense. But Tim Shipman, the reporter, has got very good contacts too, so we don't know who to believe. Right, let's move on to Liverpool. The Liverpool Echo, I think you've got there. We are in Liverpool and you've got the Echo.
Well, quite rightly. Liverpool Echo is having a look at what Dawn Butler said yesterday about a return to militant. So obviously we're thinking back to the 1980s, Derek Hatton, the idea that we should go back to a policy whereby presumably Liverpool Council scraps its own budget and decides to add 30 million to the pot and then ends up bankrupting the council, and whether that's the way to go ahead. She's received a great deal of criticism for saying that we should go back to those kind of militant-dominated times of the 1980s. People pointing out that Derek Hatton's militant colleagues were misogynistic bullies. A Labour spokesperson said she was trying to make the point that we needed to go back to the days of trying to defeat Thatcherite policies. Well, I'm not sure people in Liverpool will necessarily agree with her on that.
I'm absolutely certain that people in Liverpool would agree with her. Liverpool was decimated by the economic policy of the Thatcher government, and I think the points that she's making about cuts to council services are equally valid today. It's a total misrepresentation to suggest as well that a woman who's championing equalities in the Labour Party can be accused of these things. The really serious point is, cities like Liverpool are still recovering in many ways from Thatcherism, and we've now had 8 years of austerity.
Liverpool's doing very, very well, isn't it? It was a city of culture. It's absolutely thriving. And equally, didn't Hatton bankrupt the council?
Hatton did
and
not.
then later revealed himself to be a capitalist who drove a 60 grand Range Rover around.
Speaking of Degsy...
That's socialism for you, everyone.
Speaking of Degsy, he's put his application in for Labour Party membership. I don't think he's heard back yet. Do you think he should be able to join again?
Okay, I think that's up to the Labour Party.
Well, if he's such a hero, maybe he should.
Let's turn back to the Conservative Party, because buried in the Sunday Telegraph there is an extraordinary letter from local Conservative chairman, I think they call them chairman in the Conservative Party, to Theresa May, basically warning her off her own Chequers deal and saying, we are really angry. We think this is a betrayal of British democracy.
Yes, I mean, she is really fighting on several fronts, and we know that that won't end well. I think there are, how many, was it constituencies.
Chairman so saying here, dear Prime Minister, you need to shed the shackles
Yes.
of the Chequers deal. We need to take a look at this. We would like you to attend a meeting of the National Conservative Convention at the party conference in Birmingham to listen to the concerns of party members over the Chequers white paper. So this is going to put enormous pressure on her from party high command.
This is the nearest thing the Tory party gets to a peasants' revolt.
That's exactly it, yes.
Absolutely right.
A respectable revolt there.
They have literally convened her to a meeting and said that she must personally respond. So it's absolutely clear that, I mean, her days are numbered.
Do you think that Chequers is dead?
Yes. I do think Chequers is dead because I think even if you took half of the ERG, you took the very Brexiteer-y half of the DRG, bearing in mind it does have pragmatic Remainers who are members, then Labour aren't going to vote for it either. So there just isn't the, pardon the pun, momentum to get it across the line.
Yeah.
We try and get a little bit of non-straight politics into this debate. I think it was a story in the Telegraph that you like, Camilla, about.
Yeah, this was interesting. Curb the salesmen who prey on new mothers, Minister tells hospitals. This is an initiative by Caroline Dinniage. Having had 3 children in hospital, I'm familiar with the people who sell these bounty packs, and they come to new mothers and there's a pack and it might have a few nappies and some other kind of baby-related gizmos in there. What mothers are saying is these bounty people are coming within hours of them giving birth, trying to extract data from them about their children and essentially being very intrusive far too soon.
Well, I think we can both agree that that should stop.
This is a Tory policy that you're agreeing with.
A moment of agreement.
It might be the only thing we agree on, but I think we can both agree on that.
A moment of agreement. Thank you both very much indeed. And so